What's up in War Eagle War Report family? It's your guy Ike Jones. We are back with another morning drop. Today, I want to talk about the offensive line for the Auburn Tigers. Does Auburn have the depth to be able to be competitive this season up front? Let's talk about it. Y'all know how we do right here, War Report style. Let's drop it on them.
You are now listening to the War Report. Drop.
The morning drop, it is Monday, August the 12th. We're in here courtesy of Rogue Shop. As always, make sure you head over to rogueshop.com. Use code REPORT when you do to get a little something off of your purchase at America's #1 online dispensary at the Rogue Shop. Use code REPORT when you go over there. Today, we're going to get it started talking about the offensive line. The offensive line for Auburn has been a unit that has been moderately successful, right? Like, it hasn't been terrible. I think some people feel like the offensive line's been terrible. I wouldn't classify them as terrible, but by no means has been great. Really kind of a middle of the pack offensive line. Been good in some games, been great in some games, actually, and been really bad at specifically at pass protection in some games. But as a run unit, been fairly good. But this season, Auburn is trying to take a step forward with the offense. And in order to do better offensively, it really starts with how well you're going to be able to block things up front. And Auburn, I think, has a lot of talent on this offensive line to be able to play better this season. And when you listen to the coaching staff talk about this offensive line, one of the words you hear them talk about is the depth. Whether or not they're actually able to absorb the things that happen during seasons, which is injuries, which is guys not playing well, and you need to be able to pivot and go somewhere else, move guys around to find the proper fit. And it seems as if Auburn has started to develop a little bit of depth in that. One of the big things that Coach Hugh Freeze did when he came on board was in the talent acquisition portion was he focused on making sure that there were guys in that offensive line unit that were going to be able to compete at an SEC level. I love what he did in the acquisition space as far as this offseason, bringing in a guy like Percy Lewis to come play offensive tackle, which allows Dylan Wade to slide into what they would call a more natural fit for his body type at the guard position. So being able to move away from the era in Auburn football where you have guys that are essentially guards playing at tackle. You have guys that are playing at tackle that are tackles, and you can have guys that are more naturally fit to play guard, playing the guard position, which bolsters the depth of your guard position because you have people that can play at their natural position out there at tackle or are more naturally fit to play the tackle position. But last week, there were a couple of press conferences, as there are every week during fall camp. And during that, last week, you heard Coach Hugh Freeze specifically talking about the depth of the offensive line. I just want to play a quick clip of Coach Hugh Freeze's comments, and then we'll talk about those things here, talking about the offensive line depth.
Yeah, we're forming some. I tell you, he didn't get a lot. That didn't get talked about a lot. Joyner's really surprised me, truthfully. He's going to be a really solid backup for us and can play all three in the middle. Tate is leading, and gosh, just he's practicing really, really hard, and so feel really good about those two. And I tell you, Drake Carter's got something to him now. He's just a freshman and needs to get stronger and all of that, but he moves people. And so those three, along with Tyler Johnson and Ronan Chambers has done some good things too at tackle. So feel like we're developing some depth there.
So you hear Coach Hugh Freeze there talking about a couple of guys along the offensive line that have impressed him. I want to start with the name that he said first, which is Braden Joyner, as a guy who surprised him a little bit. Listen, when I watched the tape on Braden Joyner 2 signing days ago now, because this is going to be his second season at Auburn, I was very impressed with what I saw from Braden Joyner as far as just his ability to move people, his tenacity in going and wanting to really finish blocks. That's a big thing for me when I'm watching offensive line player, like finishing a block, not just engaging in, getting in a guy's way. I'm talking about really making sure that you walk that guy over to the sideline. Braden Joyner has that nasty in him. And it seems as if he has been impressive out there for Coach Hugh Freeze and on the interior offensive line. And he's a guy that is going to be able to be counted on in the minds of the coaches as far as coming in and playing quality minutes if his name gets called. And then for the second offseason in a row, you hear about the leadership of Tate Johnson and his ability to be out there and be a vocal leader and having guys understand the right way to get out there and handle business as a collegiate athlete. So definitely hoping that Tate Johnson can remain healthy, because that's really been the biggest thing for him during his collegiate career thus far, is he just hasn't really been able to be out there and be healthy for a considerable amount of time that allows him to be out there on the field. Like, he had worked his way into the starting lineup at one point in time as the starting center, and then I think he got hurt like two or three games into the season, and ended up not finishing out that season. So Tate Johnson is a guy who multiple coaches now have trusted to be able to go out there and be in that too deep space for Auburn, but just hasn't really been able to be healthy, but has been counted on as a guy who is going to be a leader in the locker room for that offensive line unit. So looking forward to seeing the progression of Tate Johnson, and hopefully he can remain healthy. The next one that you're hearing a lot about now, or that Coach Hugh Freeze mentioned there, that's good to hear, is Dre Carter, right? Like, he just got here during the summer. He wasn't an early enrollee, but he was one of those late people brought in this offensive line group in this past recruiting cycle, and highly touted coming in, but as Coach Free says, he needs to get a little bit stronger, but he can move people even at the size that he is, which he's, monstrous size. He's already got kind of the body that you would want to have, but needs to be able to kind of understand what's happening out there. But raw talent, but going to be a crucial piece for the future for this Auburn Tiger unit there along the offensive line. Looking forward to seeing what the progress of Dre Carter is. And then Ronan Chambers is a name that I haven't heard a lot, but Coach Hugh Freeze mentioned him as a tackle. He and Tyler Johnson as guys that can play out there at the tackle. Now, if you guys are fans of the War Report, I actually think that Tyler Johnson is going to be extremely important to this team coming up in the future. I think he's a guy that's going to be able to get out there and really compete with a guy like Tutal out there on the right side for the tackle position. I think Tyler Johnson's going to be able to go out there and compete with him. He's got the size, he's got the ability, and been hearing good things about him now for a second offseason. Hopefully he'll continue to grow in that role. But Ronan Chambers is a new name for me, for guys that are starting to make an impression out there at the tackle position. But it's good to hear that you have an additional tackle now that's going to be able to provide depth for you, so you don't have to rely on maybe kicking Dylan Wade back out there to be a tackle in your two deep. You can allow him to continue to be an interior guy and maybe even move around along that interior, so that you continue to have solidified depth there. So good to hear that Coach Hugh Freeze feels that there's enough depth out there at the tackle position to be able to have multiple guys that they feel comfortable with along that front. Speaking of just good, solid performance, you guys know that right here at the War Report during the morning drop, we have the JOYMODE pills that you can go ahead and get a little sample of if you use code REPORT. I won't even say a sample, but go out there and try it at usejoymode.com and be able to use code REPORT to get 20% off and free shipping when you use code REPORT. Everybody wants to perform their best, but the problem is sometimes our thoughts get in the way of our performance, or maybe we feel like we're just not reaching our full potential. What are the options? Pick up a sketchy gas station pill or a prescribed drug with a long list of side effects. That's where our friends at JOYMODE come in. Imagine a supplement you can take like your favorite greens packet that gives you an extra dose of confidence and saves you the embarrassment and hassle of a traditional erection pill. JOYMODE's Sexual Performance Booster is an all-natural, science-backed solution to increase blood flow, firmness, stamina, and performance. And it comes in a palm-sized packet like your favorite electrolyte powder. Just stir 6 to 8 ounces of water and 45 minutes before sexual activity and watch the magic unfold, literally. Not only is this the only supplement you'll need in the bedroom, but it also supports your blood vessel, cardiovascular health, athletic performance, blood pressure, and more. Even on days when you're not having sex, you can take the SPB to boost the nitric oxide in your blood, which not only supports your erection quality longer term, but also increases the blood flow and circulation. Make sure you head over to usejoymode.com. Use code REPORT when you do that to get 20% off plus free shipping when you do that purchase that tells them the War Report sent you. We appreciate Joy Mo for continuing to sponsor. We appreciate Coach Hugh Freeze and the athletic staff and the recruiting staff for continuing to get the performance of this offensive line in the correct space. Also, last week, we got an opportunity to hear from offensive line coach Jake Thornton about how he felt as if this offensive line was performing and being able to get to the right places. And the crucial thing that he talked about as the reasons why they feel good about the depth of the offensive line, he specifically talked about the center position. You know, the guys that are going to be out there doing all the things. If you've heard me again talk about the offensive line performance last year, I lamented on how the quarterback and the offensive line just didn't really seem to be in places where they were understanding what they were seeing out in front of them and getting the right calls in place. Jake Thornton feels as if that has been remedied during this offseason. Let's hear him talk about the offensive line performance.
Yeah, I think you can just tell on the field, he can, and we use depth chart lightly around here during fall camp, but, you don't really tell much difference between the ones and twos and then some of the threes as well. You don't really tell much different when they're out there on the field. They're all executing. I think that's a testament to the four guys that are repping at center, which is Connor Lew, Tate Johnson, Braden Joyner, and Dylan Cinda, because they're controlling traffic there, and those four guys are probably the best mental guys we have, and so they're able to get everybody on the same page. I think that's probably the thing that's helping that depth continue to grow, is because I think everybody knows what to do because those 3 or 4 guys play center.
So Coach Thornton there talking about the 3 to 4 guys that should be rotating or are available to be there and play at the center position. Starting it off with Connor Lew, of course, the dynamic sophomore now. Connor Lew, who came in last season in relief duty and played admirably as a true freshman. A lot of high hopes for Connor Lew. He's a guy that's been getting some preseason watch list type of stuff, Remington Award watch list stuff. So Connor Lew is going to be a guy that's going to be counted on very heavily for this Auburn Tigers team. As Coach Jake Thornton said there, he's going to be the guy making all the calls, and he named 4 guys there, and he felt as if those guys mentally were the ones that were always keen on what was happening out there and getting people in the right position and making all the calls. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Connor Lew progresses in year 2 here on the Plains. The other one, the next one in line, Tate Johnson again. Again, he was a guy that has been talked about from his leadership perspective, but now introducing the mental aspect of him understanding what's going on there and keeping that second unit. Of course, Coach Thornton said don't really get into the depth chart stuff there during the preseason or during this fall camp. They use it very loosely, but when you're talking about the rotations there, we understand Connor Lew is going to be the number 1 guy. But behind him, you've got guys like Tate Johnson who have the leadership and the understanding of where people need to be and how to get those calls effectively done. Next, again, just mentioned him, Braden Joyner there at center. So he played a little bit of center and guard. And you heard Coach Hugh Freeze talk about the versatility that he brings of being able to move along all 3 positions there on the interior of the offensive line. But center is one of the positions that he's going to be touted or tabbed to be able to be there for the depth. And he played a lot of center at his high school. So good to see that he's able to bring that level of just kind of aptitude for what's happening out there. And that's translating right now. And then another name that we really hadn't heard a lot about since he came over, and that's Dylan Cinda, right? He was the late acquisition last year onto this team. And now he is repping there at the center position. So that's a guy that, if I had slotted to maybe be a guard for this team, but he's going to be there as a depth piece for the center position. And he's a guy that they are counting on to be in the right place mentally to be able to get everybody else in the correct space is what they need to be doing along that offensive line. So definitely it seems as if the coaching staff feels good about the depth of the offensive line. And that's going to be, again, so important when you get into the middle of the season because, listen, frankly, injuries happen. There has not been a year that I can remember where Auburn, in recent memory, where Auburn started with a group of 5 there on the offensive line and finished the season with that same group of 5 having started all games. And really, that just doesn't happen a lot along college football just because of the nature of that position. So you have to have the depth there. And it's good to know that specifically in the center position, there's enough quality depth there where they feel good about rotating other guys in. And it makes it seem as if they don't have to have guys playing out of position in order to have that depth along the offensive line. Now, we'll go more in depth into all all of the pieces that are along the offensive line in another show, but definitely encouraging if you're an Auburn fan, hearing the coaches talk so confidently about what could potentially be a very deep offensive line unit for the Auburn Tigers coming into the 24 season. All right, I'm going to get out of here. I appreciate you all listening to me talk a little bit of offensive line today. Before you get out of here, just definitely want to give another shout out to the sponsor of the morning drop. That is Rogue Shop. Make sure you head over there. Sleep, stress, pain, anxiety relief. All of those things can be remedied at rogueshop.com. Use code REPORT when you head over there for a little something off your purchase. Before you get out of here, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, share the content with somebody. If you're out there in the world of podcasts, make sure you give us that 5-star review. We'll be back at you guys with more great Auburn content next time. But until then, and as always, War Eagle.
Drop.